All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something I think we all find fascinating and maybe even a little bit daunting, parenting styles.
Parenting styles around the world. It's a pretty big topic.
Yeah, and luckily our listeners sent in a ton of articles and research from all over about how different cultures approach raising kids.
Yeah, from those traditional approaches that have been passed down for generations to the newer trends that are kind of popping up all over the place these days.
And our mission, if you choose to accept it, is to explore this incredible variety of approaches, understand their pros and cons, and see if maybe we can glean some insights along the way that might resonate with you, the listener.
Because there really isn't one right way to parent, is there?
No, definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. So to get started, I think it's helpful to paint a kind of broad picture here. We've got these traditional styles that are often very much rooted in cultural beliefs.
Right, very tied to history and values.
And then we've got this whole wave of new generation trends that are influenced by everything from, modern research to social media and just the way the world is changing.
It's like this constant interplay between holding on to those time-tested methods and embracing new ideas.
Okay, so let's dive into some specifics. One that always grabs my attention is tiger parenting. Rigorous, achievement-focused, often associated with East Asian cultures. I always think of it like boot camp for kids.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. Yeah, it really emphasizes discipline, hard work, and a strong focus on academic success.
Yeah, you see those structured schedules, high expectations, and a really strong emphasis on parental authority.
It's interesting, though, because while it might sound kind of intense,
Right.
it can actually lead to some pretty impressive achievements.
Yeah, but then that makes you wonder, what about the potential downsides? Is there a risk of putting too much pressure on kids?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that really stood out in the research you sent. Actually, one study from the Journal of Child and Family Studies found that while children raised with tiger parenting tend to do very well academically, they also had higher rates of depression and anxiety compared to their peers.
Wow. So it's like even a style that's intended to set kids up for success can backfire if it comes at the expense of their well-being.
Yeah, I think it really highlights that need for balance.
Find that sweet spot.
Right. Striving for excellence is important, but it shouldn't come at the cost of a child's mental and emotional health.
Okay, so on a totally different note, let's talk about attachment parenting, which I know has gained a lot of traction in recent years.
Yeah, this one emphasizes that deep nurturing bond between parent and child.
Right, and we see it in various forms across different cultures, but it seems to have really resonated in Western societies as well.
It's interesting how it's often presented as this response to the fast-paced, maybe even sometimes detached nature of modern life.
Okay, so if tiger parenting is about pushing kids to achieve, attachment parenting is more about creating that secure base for them to kind of explore from.
Yeah, exactly. And it really emphasizes those close physical and emotional connections like baby wearing, co-sleeping, extended breastfeeding, things like that.
And the idea is that this strong attachment creates a foundation for emotional security, self-esteem, healthy relationships later in life.
That's the idea. But there are definitely potential downsides to consider, too. One thing that came up a lot in the research was the risk of parental burnout.
Yeah, that makes sense. It could be incredibly demanding to constantly meet a child's needs, especially in those early years.
Right. And, parents aren't superhuman. They have their own limits and other responsibilities to juggle.
Exactly. So it seems like even with these very different styles, it comes back to finding that balance.
Finding that sweet spot that works for both the child and the parent.
All right, well, I am ready to move on to those new generation trends.
Let's do it. They're really fascinating.
I'm excited to hear more about those.
They really are. I mean, it's like they're taking those traditional styles and kind of giving them a modern makeover.
Okay, so let's start with one that's getting a lot of attention lately, gentle parenting. I'm getting a sense of, lots of patience and understanding.
Yeah, you got it. Gentle parenting is all about moving away from punishments and focusing on communication and empathy.
Okay, so it's more about guiding kids to understand and regulate their emotions instead of resorting to those more traditional discipline tactics.
Right. And one of the articles you shared by Dr. Laura Markham really breaks this down. She talks about techniques like active listening, validating a child's feelings, even when they might seem irrational to us.
Yeah, or like offering choices instead of just giving command.
Exactly. It's about shifting that power dynamic and creating a more collaborative approach to discipline.
So instead of saying, go to your room, it's more like, hey, I see that you're really upset right now. Would you like to talk about it, or would you like some space to calm down?
Exactly. It's about respecting their feelings even when they're having a meltdown.
Which I imagine takes a lot of patience.
Oh, definitely. Especially when you're in the middle of a toddler tantrum in the grocery store or something.
Oh, yeah. I can see how that would be challenging. But it does sound like it could help build a strong foundation for mutual respect and open communication.
It's about setting firm boundaries, but in a way that respects their feelings and their autonomy.
It's like, I hear you, I understand you're upset, but we still have rules we need to follow.
Exactly. Now, another trend that's closely related to this is conscious parenting.
Okay, so this one's like parenting plus self-awareness.
Yeah, it really encourages parents to look inward, to be mindful of their own emotional baggage and how that might be affecting their interactions with their kids.
So it's about recognizing those patterns from our own childhood and how they might be playing out in our parenting.
Right. One of the books you shared, Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, really dives into this idea of healing those old wounds.
So it's not just about understanding our kids' emotions, it's about understanding our own as well.
Because let's face it, we all have our own stuff that we bring to the table.
Baggage galore.
Haha, yeah. And if we're not aware of it, we risk passing those unhealthy patterns on to our kids.
So it's about breaking those cycles.
And creating a healthier dynamic for everyone.
Okay, so with all these different approaches and trends popping up, we can't forget about the elephant in the room technology. How is that shaping parenting these days?
That's a great question. And that's where tech-integrated parenting comes in. It's definitely a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay, I can see how it could go either way.
On one hand, you've got access to all these incredible tools for education connection, even safety.
Right, like educational apps, video chats with grandparents, even location tracking for older kids.
Exactly. It's like technology has become this extension of parenting itself.
But I imagine there are downsides too. Like, what about screen time, social isolation, all that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. One of the articles you sent actually highlighted a study from the American Academy of Pediatrics that found excessive screen time can have some pretty negative effects on kids' development.
Like language development, sleep patterns, attention span, all that.
Exactly. It all comes back to finding that balance, doesn't it?
Balance seems to be the key with all of this, but how do you even begin to navigate all these different styles and trends? It's a lot to process.
It can definitely feel overwhelming, and that's where I think this idea of hybrid parenting comes in.
Okay, so that's like creating your own personalized approach by picking and choosing elements from different styles.
Exactly. There's no rule that says you have to stick to just one approach. The key is to figure out what aligns with your family's values and your child's unique needs.
So it's like curating your own parenting philosophy.
I like that. It's about being flexible and adapting as you go, because what works for one family might not work for another, and what works for your child at one stage might not work at another stage.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes the pressure off trying to find that perfect parenting style.
Right, and it allows you to create something that's truly unique to your family. But then the question is, where do you even start with all of this?
Yeah, how do you actually personalize this parenting journey?
Well, based on all the research you've gathered, it seems like there are a few key principles that are kind of universally applicable.
Okay, lay 'em on me. What are the golden nuggets here?
Okay, well, one of the biggest takeaways from all the research is the importance of understanding your child's individual needs.
So like really tuning into who they are as a person, not just treating them like a generic kid.
Yeah, exactly. Because every child is different, right? They have different temperaments, learning styles, sensitivities, and what works for one kid might not work at all for another.
Makes sense. It's like remembering that they're their own little humans, not mini versions of us.
Right, and as they grow and change, you kind of have to adapt your approach too. Flexibility is key.
So understanding your child being flexible, what else?
This one might sound obvious, but it's so important. Prioritizing that emotional connection with your child.
Right, making sure they feel loved and supported.
Exactly, because no matter what style you're leaning towards, that strong bond is really the foundation of everything.
Yeah, it makes all the other stuff, the discipline, the guidance, the boundaries, it makes it all work.
It's like the glue that holds it all together.
Okay, so connection is key. What else stood out to you?
Never stop learning. The world of parenting is always changing. There's always something new to discover.
Like what?
It could be a new approach to discipline, a deeper understanding of child development, or just connecting with other parents and sharing experiences.
Yeah, it's like a lifelong learning process for both us and our kids.
And all that research you gathered, those articles and books, those are amazing resources.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to go back and reread some of those.
I think it's helpful to revisit them now that we've had this conversation, See what jumps out at you now, what resonates with you, what challenges you.
Like a fresh perspective.
Exactly. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer here. Parenting is messy and unpredictable. There's no magic formula.
Yeah, it's about embracing the chaos and figuring it out as we go.
And giving ourselves a little grace along the way.
I love that. Well, my brain is officially full of parenting wisdom. Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive. It's been so insightful.
It's been my pleasure. And before we go, I want to leave you with one last question after all this exploration. What one aspect of parenting feels most important to you right now? Is it connection, independence, resilience? Hold on to that thought and let it guide you on your unique parenting journey.
Such a great question. And to all our listeners out there, I hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about, some new ideas to explore. Remember, there's no one right way to parent. It's all about finding what feels authentic and fulfilling for you and your family. Until next time, happy parenting, everyone.